Hello, climbers, and welcome to Climbing Mount CMMC. Back to the basics.
Good job.
Where is it going? Look, sky.
Hello, climbers, and welcome back to another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC, the podcast. My name is Kaleigh Floyd, and Bobby Guerra is not here with us. He's still okay. I mean, he's doing okay. He's fine. He's just going through an assessment. He has to do these like really important things that are involved in CMMC. So because of that, I'm actually solo today. And so this is where a lot of people click off and decide to stop listening. Please don't. I swear it'll be great. What I'm going to be talking about today is the CCP course. So I'm really excited because I just recently went through all of it. So a little bit odd, I would say. I did all of this. I decided to have a baby and move while studying and training and taking the test for the CCP course. So I would not recommend doing that. But you know what? We're here and I passed and I'm good. So if I can do it, you can too. So what I want to talk about is really just being a study buddy for you guys. So if you're listening to this and you're about to take the CCP, awesome. Congratulations. You've got this. And my goal is to try to help you in the things that I felt like helped me. Hopefully I can do it for the CCA while I go through that. So I want to talk about the overarching themes of the CCP test and then go into the more details of it. Now, I can't get into too many details because it is an exam. I do not want to get in trouble for sure. So I'm not going to get into the specific questions and pull up my questions and answers on the screen. I also don't have them, so I couldn't do that. But I do want to talk about the categories and the percentages of how much it covers in the exam. All of this is actually accessible through ISACA's website. So I'm not speaking anything crazy that you can't access yourself. I'll put the link to this in the description so you guys can check it out for yourselves as well. And then I'm going to kind of go into my personal experience and what helped me, even some amazing resources that are in the ecosystem right now that if you're not using it, I don't know what you're doing. So yeah, let's get into it. So first, I want to lay the foundation for those of you guys who are not aware. ISACA, they are the new KCO. They are the people now in charge of creating the curriculum for the CCP and CCA courses, as well as the testing for it. And also, they actually have a pretty cool system on the back end with going through not only your CCP and CCA certifications, but keeping track of a lot of other certifications that go through ISACA. So it's pretty cool on the back end, but definitely a big shift in the ecosystem. There's still certified training providers. They're called LTPs, licensed training providers. Those training providers are people like Edwards, Corinne Wise has Wise Technical Innovations. You have a few different people out there that do training. I did mine through Corinne. She's great. And there's a lot of really good ones out there. So definitely check them out. Now, these people are going to train you. You're going to go through your course. Normally, it's about a week long. And once you go through that week-long course and you get your credits for that course, you can go ahead and apply and schedule your exam. This exam is like how I said at the beginning, it's broken out into 6 domains. Oh, we love domains here. If you don't know what a domain is, go through the CCP course, which is maybe why you're listening to this. And so for the context of how the exam is broken out, you've got the CMMC ecosystem as one domain. Okay. The ecosystem is really understanding a few different things. You know, you want to understand the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, OUSD. You want to understand what that's for, what authority they have over CMMC. Then you also want to understand the Cyber AB, which, funny enough, if you're taking the CCP course, they're actually going to refer to the Cyber AB as the CMMC AB because it's old material, and that's what they used to be called. But the Cyber AB and the accreditation body, what they're for, all of those things and those components are underneath the umbrella or the domain of CMMC ecosystem, okay? if you're wondering, okay, what percentage of this is in the exam, it actually says it on ISACA's website. If you take a look at it, it says that it's 5% of the exam. So it's not a huge portion. It's actually one of the smaller portions of the exam. I have absolutely no problem with sharing that I did the worst. I did the worst on this domain. And you know what? Somebody take away my podcast. Somebody take away my podcast that talks about the CMMC ecosystem, because I did the worst on this category. But to be honest, this is the scariest one for me. And the reason is because it's old. And so you have to kind of go back in time and study back in time to be able to prepare for what the exam says and what is correct, right? And so if you're somebody that's heavily involved in the ecosystem, it might be a little bit of a difficult category for you if you don't remember how things used to be back in the day. So keep track of those things. Make sure to study those again in the link that I have down below. It even talks about which types of individuals, which types of organizations are all in the ecosystem and what you need to keep track of. Honestly, as I'm looking at this, I have no idea why I did the worst. I have no idea why I did the worst on this one. There's no explanation for it. I digress. I passed anyway. It's going to be fine. So the second domain is going to be the Code of Professional Conduct. Okay, this is ethics. This is the next percentage that is the least, I guess, important on the exam. It's the other 5%er on the exam weight. So the weight of it is one of the lower ones. But when you're talking about ethics, you're talking about studying the Code of Professional Conduct, okay? So the Code of Professional Conduct has very specific rules and regulations, guidelines for the ecosystem. It's from the Cyber AB. They keep track of it. You can look at it on their website. We can link it down below. You need to know what you can and can't do, guys. I mean, I feel like that's pretty fair. So in domain 2, for that category, it's really studying that would be very important, as well as something that's interesting is there's a few like ISO questions on there. I feel like it was just one or two. Understanding the Department of War requirements, like how it applies to the ecosystem with what they require of professional conduct, knowing what is legal and what is not. But again, most of that should be covered in the Code of Professional Conduct. You also can check out like conflict of interest forms and how they apply into a CMMC level 2 third-party assessment, because there are requirements for understanding if there are conflicts of interest, knowing how non-disclosure agreements connect into that. The way that you can also check those parts out is studying not only the CAP, the CMMC assessment process, but also the assessment guides for level 1 and level 2. Now is the time that I'm going to emphasize something about the CAP. So to study the CAP, as of right now, as I'm recording this, on the 8th of July in 2026, the assessment process, CMMC assessment process, that you should study for your CCP is the 5.6.1 version. So it's an old version from August of 2022. It is not the newer one. There is a newer CAP. Spoiler alert, there's going to be an even newer one. And that's going to be coming out, I don't know when, but I know they finished it, I'm pretty sure. So that should be coming out soon. But all of that to say, very much in the past. Not all of it is the same anymore. And so you have to go to the past to study for this one as well. Okay, so just keep in mind when it comes to studying the CAP, please make sure to study the right one. I can link it in the description so you have the right one. Now, as I'm looking at my score, it looks like this is the second highest one that I did. So I know not to cheat, guys. I am not a cheater. No snake oil here. I know my ethics. So that's good. And I think, I can say confidently that I very much studied those things. I very much studied the Code of Professional Conduct. I studied the CAP, the CMMC assessment process, and all those things. And it seemed to do me justice. So make sure to do that there. Now, the third domain number 3, CMMC governance and source documents. Oh boy, this is a fun one. If you have dyslexia, I'm so sorry, because this is not going to be a fun category for you. I can say that confidently because Bobby does have it, and that this was not fun for him. So, memorization of what documents do what the numbers are, what the order of the numbers are. This is your category, guys. You're going to be paying attention to what does Part 32 CFR, what does it do? How does it apply? DFARS Clause 252-204-7012 versus 7019 versus 7020 versus 7021 versus 7025. Spoiler alert, 7025, not on there because it wasn't made yet. So disregard that. But NIST 800 171, NIST 800 172, what's the difference between 171A and 171? If you don't know the answer to that, keep on studying. Spoiler alert, one has assessment objectives, one doesn't. Okay, I'll tell you the answer because I'm trying to help you here. So all of this governance and source documents category is understanding, okay, what are these, FAR, DFAR requirements, CFRs? What are they for? What's the purpose behind them? What the number is? So a lot of it is memorization. This is super important stuff, guys. Like if you're in the ecosystem and you're talking to contractors, like at least for me, this was a really helpful revamp and making sure that I have my crap together when it comes to this stuff. Because when I'm talking to somebody on a Teams call and they're like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. I'm like, well, what does your contract say? Like, do you have this? Do you have this? Is it only requesting for this portion, or is it also saying that you have to have a certain level? Do you have to have level 2? Is it self-assessment? Is it C3PAO? What does it say? So understanding that is going to be really great here. The way that you can study for this is honestly, if you go through a good training provider, they give you a lot of this material in a condensed version that can help a lot. But something that is really cool, I'm going to plug Sector 171, and we can put the link to this game in the description. But a super, super cool game was invented by Tara in the ecosystem. And shout out, thank you so much, Tara, for making this game and making it fun and making it cool to be able to study for your CCP and CCA. So what they did is created this super fun game to be able to learn in a fun way and in a game sense. And so in this game, you can go through different levels, different categories. Something that's really fun in this game is it does study some of this stuff. The other part that's really great to use the game for is the scoping domain, which that's the last one that I'll talk about. But I use that a lot for scoping questions, and I think it really, really helped me out. So if you're studying for these, trying to remember, what NIST 800 171 is for, what the difference is between the DFARS requirements and DFARS clauses, like this game would really help you out. So definitely check that out. And I feel bad for the people that didn't have it before studying this. So it looks like I did okay in this category, which is pretty surprising to me. I'm not sure what I missed exactly because it doesn't tell you what you missed. I didn't do the worst at it, but I didn't do great. So I think maybe something that would have helped me if I could go back is potentially studying the requirements for FCI versus CUI. I'm going to be honest with you. I live in a world where it's CUI or nothing. Like, there's no such thing as talking with somebody that's only handling FCI for me. They're normally reaching out to us because they have CUI or they're about to have it. Because of that, I didn't really know or have to know a ton of requirements for just FCI versus CUI. So potentially that could have been something that I should have brushed up on. I think another thing as I'm looking at these is understanding the foundational levels of level 1, which, has to go with the FCI information that I was talking about as well. I think brushing up more on level 1 and FCI would have been better. I have pretty good wraps around level 2 and CUI requirements, but yeah, I think that would have helped me a lot. Something that is interesting too is there are a few just small bits of talking about the Civil Cyber Fraud Initiative or False Claims Act and stuff like that. Sometimes the way that they ask these questions are super bizarre, super weird. Like, take your time, read them for real. Make sure you feel comfortable with what they're asking before answering it. And those could have been ones that maybe tripped me up. So definitely check those things out. Check out Tara's app. Sector 171. Oh, another thing. Hello. 32 CFR and 48 CFR. If you haven't read through those or understand what they're for, you gotta do it. Gotta read it. And it's not crazy long, you know. Don't read through all the comments section to study. Like at the beginning of each one of these, there's a big comment section where it says, comment, response, comment, response, comment, response. Well, if you scroll past that is the actual document. If you go ahead and do that, it's a lot faster of a read. It's actually, in my opinion, maybe I'm a psychopath, but it's really interesting. Super helpful. Super helpful. If you have no interest in reading these documents, honestly, don't get your CCP. Don't actually go into the ecosystem because you're not helpful. So, I mean, maybe that's a hot take, but that's what I would say. So, if you're really going to go all in and you're going to do this stuff, do it. So read those things. If you're not going to read it, don't take the CCP course, okay? And then next, let's talk about the next category, Domain 4. This is the CMMC model, construct, and implementation evaluation. Say that 3 times fast. Implementation evaluation. This is good stuff. Model architecture, model levels, okay? Do you know how many levels are in CMMC? 3. It's 3. Okay, you better know that. If you're saying 5, guys, too far in the past. You're too far. You got to catch up. You're too old. So 3, okay, you got to understand the numbering scheme. You got to understand the domains. Ooh, boy, this is getting into the good stuff, okay? If you don't know this stuff, I don't know how you're going to help your own company or somebody get through CMMC. This is going into NIST Special Publication 800-171 controls. And it goes into some assessment objectives. I love that. I love it. So you need to understand the different families. You need to understand the different domains. You got to know access control, audit and accountability, awareness and training, configuration management. And they have beautiful, cute little, letters. They're each 2 letters, AC, AU, AT, CM, IA. Know them. Know them all. Know what they're for. And here's something that I will say. Know what they're for is like an emphasis that I say, because I got tripped up. I feel like I know the domains for NIST 800-171 pretty well, but I guess I wasn't locked in enough. I don't know. I was getting tripped up. They asked like specific questions about, not going to get too much into details, but specific domains and the purpose behind them and where you would find something in that one versus this one. Like, would an assessor ask about this in this domain or this domain? I'm like, shoot, maybe both? And it could be both. It actually very much is probably both. But what's the most correct answer? And so this is where you realize, okay, I don't just have to like get the idea of like, okay, do I have to just memorize AC, AU, AT and I'm good? No, you need to know them, like what the purpose is behind them, what's underneath those controls, like assessment objective wise. What are they really asking for when they're getting to AC? What are they really asking for when talking about personnel security? Could you talk about personnel security as well in access control? Yeah, you could kinda, because they're like access in different ways. So, they connect. And so you need to know. You need to know these. So make sure to go through NIST 800-171, Rev 2A. Got to go through the assessment objectives, know those, know them like the back of your hand, know the numbering scheme. I wouldn't stress too much about that. It's pretty self-explanatory because you're going to see the 2 letters at the beginning. Like, for example, AC, L1, 3.1.1, authorized access control. So it'll tell you at the end of it, authorized access control. So even if you fluff up the numbers, I think you can kind of get there. But yeah, definitely know that. That was my 3rd highest that I got. So going to the percentages, going back to those, I said already CMMC ecosystem is 5%, CMMC AB, cyber AB, code of professional conduct is 5%. So those are the smallest categories. Then the CMMC governance and source documents. So that's when I was talking about understanding what DFARS clauses are for, 32 CFR, 48 CFR, what they're for, what numbers they are, how they connect. That is 15%. So that's higher. So know your stuff on that. But after this, CMMC model construct and implementation evaluation, this is what we were talking about with knowing the AC, AT, AU, all the domains, the controls, the assessment objectives. That's 35%. 35% of the exam. So if you're wondering if that's important, the answer is yeah, it's the most important to know. So take your time on that, know it. They're not just going to ask questions about the numbers, they're going to ask questions that would make you think, make you really have to know what's in that domain. So that is the highest exam weight category, is that one for 35%. Coming up at number 2 as the highest weighted exam component is the CAP, the CMMC assessment process. I talked about this with understanding a little bit of the Code of Professional Conduct and Ethics. Some of it kind of ties into that, but there's even more about the CAP that you need to study. That's 25% of the exam. So study the CAP, study the CAP, study the CAP. And if I didn't already say this, which I know I did, I'm going to say it again. It's the 5.6.1 version of the CAP, the old one, the old one. So please study the wrong version of the CAP for this exam. You need to know it. You really need to know this one. I remember getting so many questions about the CAP, and you might ask, okay, what type of questions? Well, thank you for asking that. So for the CMMC assessment process, the things that you really need to know are like the orders, how it all plays out. So what the CAP is for is really, it's for C3PAOs and assessors and people that are going to be going through assessments and knowing what they have to do and what order, with who, how. It's documenting and going through the whole assessment process. Okay, so from the very beginning to the end, there's phases and there's things in different phases. When do you sign this document? Do you have to sign this document? Does it have to be turned into SPRS? And when? What is phase 4 for? What if you don't go through phase 4? There's a lot of these questions. I feel like it can trip you up. This one I would say is one of the lower categories for me that I scored on. And you know what? I studied that CAP. I studied that CAP really hard and I still did not do the best that I feel like I could have on that. I will say, as far as my background and what I do for our company, a lot of it does involve scoping conversations and conversations around NIST 800-171 controls and assessment objectives and talking with our clients about that. And I don't go through assessments a lot. Bobby is normally the one that's more skilled in actually conducting an assessment and going through it with the clients. I wish I would have gotten his results and compared them to mine before we did this. I wish I would have done that, but I'm curious. I would guess that Bobby did a lot better than me in this category because he's gone through multiple assessments and I've only sat through like one or two. Whereas the model and the implementation evaluation and the things about the NIST 800-171 controls and stuff, that is more my vibe, my shtick, and I scored higher on those. So it's really hard to memorize these things when you don't live and breathe assessments. If you are sitting through assessments, maybe watching, or you've experienced mock assessments or things like that, this is going to be so helpful for you to experience. But it's a lot of details on the back end too, that if you're not a C3PAO and you don't have to do it a lot, it's really just memorization. But if you work for a C3PAO, you will have a leg up in this category because you'll know, oh, I have to have them sign this document. We have to be able to track this here. Knowing the CMMC readiness review process. When do we start the conduct assessment phase, examine, interview, test, daily checkpoints, all of those things. So There's a lot roped into this category. Again, it's the second highest category. You really need to study this. Make sure to check it out. And if you don't want to check it out, I think here's the door again. I don't think I could be more clear about that. Okay, last category, last domain. Domain 6 is scoping. Yeah, this is going to be the most interesting category for somebody who's just hopping into the ecosystem. I feel like this will be the more difficult category for you. And you would have to just assume I'm not going to do super well in this category. So I'm going to do super well in the other categories because there's a lot of situational questions using things like IoT devices versus out of scope assets versus specialized assets versus the people in HR versus, I have this location that prints, this one doesn't. And it's like knowing these different aspects of scoping and how they connect, and also connecting, NIST 171 controls and assessment objectives into that, and what the assessor would be looking for in that environment based upon the AC domain or based upon AT. And so this category is more nuanced. They consider it, you have to understand CMMC high level scoping, as described in the assessment process. You're going to be given scenarios, analyze the organization's environment to generate an appropriate scope for, this is the kicker, FCI assets. Okay, so they already kind of say this in the outline on ISACA's website, but a lot of the time they're preparing CCPs, like the CMMC certified professionals, for handling and helping people with FCI and not necessarily CUI. So there are a lot of questions around FCI versus CUI. And you have to go at the questions with the scoping understanding that most likely this is not a CUI environment, but this is an FCI environment. And that is super confusing. That can be really confusing, especially for me that doesn't really handle people that are only handling FCI. Like it's CUI or nothing. So I don't know why you're asking me that question, but that's how the exam works. So just know that it's coming from that perspective and that approach. This is honestly the highest score that I got. I almost got a perfect score. I pat myself on the back for that one. And I got to tell my dad. But yeah, I was shocked because this is the most nuanced one. And this was the one that I was the most scared for. So maybe it's the one that prepped me the most. But what I will say is Sector 171, the game that I was talking to you about before. I did the scoping questions on that game that are fast paced and ask about scenarios like the ones that would be on the exam. So helpful. So helpful. Could not emphasize it enough. Do it if you haven't done it. So yeah, definitely check those out. I don't really know of anything else that's going to help you besides doing this for real. I have a lot of scoping questions with multiple different clients and multiple different aspects throughout my days. And so maybe that was also helpful because I'm doing it in the real world and having to scope people out in the real world. That makes it sound like I'm a creeper, scope people out. I have to scope their environment. I think that the actual game, if you're not doing that in real life, was just throwing scenarios that made your brain start thinking and applying what you know. And then if you don't know it, you realize, oh, I need to get better at that. And the game will tell you that you need to get better in that topic. And then you can learn more about it. So definitely check that out. The percentage, let's go back to the percentage. I feel like I already said it, but this one is 15%. So both the governance and source documents, so knowing what 32 CFR, 48 CFR, DFARS clauses, knowing what all of those are for, that's 15%. And so is scoping. Scoping is also 15%. So they're equal in line with each other. Definitely good to know those. They're more nuanced and you need to take more time reading those questions. One thing that Bobby said to me, which might be helpful to you if you don't consider yourself great at reading comprehension, maybe the scoping questions, you star those, get through all the rest of them, and then take your time at the end reading those and really trying to understand it before you answer. that could be a helpful thing that you could try. I think those are all the domains. I've gone through all of them. I've taken up a lot of your time. Hopefully that was helpful to you. I really enjoyed going through this. I highly recommend, if you're somebody that's working on CMMC in your company, or you're helping people get ready, or you want to step into the ecosystem and start working for a company that does this, really devote your time and efforts into learning these things. Go through the course. It's super helpful. I loved going through it. I'm going to do another one of these too, and talk about how I feel like it helped in my day-to-day life and how it applied in the real world. So hopefully that will be helpful to you guys. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you don't like Bobby's voice, you really enjoyed today's episode because he wasn't here. If you hated my voice, you're not even here at the end. So I really, really hope that you guys subscribe so that you can keep up to date with what we do, how we're doing it. Also on LinkedIn, so that you know when we're going to be at conferences, what we're going to be doing. We're going to be at CS5 East in October. I think that's our next upcoming conference. So if you're going to be there, let us know. We'd love to connect with you. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, as always, to keep on climbing. See ya.